ما تقدمش اولا انت ما تفتتحش وبعدين احنا نشرع ولا العميد يفتتح الجلسه؟
هاي موجود الدكتور العميد اليوم، الخميس الماضي كان عنده اجتماع، اليوم موجود. تفضل دكتور عماد.
اوكي.
طيب، بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على سيد المرسلين. السلام عليكم جميعا، وأتمنى من الله أن يكون الجميع بخير. طبعا الافتتاح هو دكتور فيصل، حضرتك أنت اللي حتبدأ وبعدها ممكن أنا أحكي كلمتين. الأفضل يعني أنت تعرف في الملتقى ومن ثم أنا بحكي كلمتين وبعدها بنبدأ جدول الأعمال. تفضل.
اوكي، جميل. First of all, good morning. I welcome all attendees, especially the Dean of the Law School or the College of Law, Professor Imad, the Vice Dean, Dr. Mohammed Farah, as well as the heads of the two departments, the Public Law Department, the Private Law Department, and all attendees who are joining us today for this symposium, which will be dealing with an important issue of recent concern to the whole humanity, which is the pandemic, the coronavirus or the COVID-19 pandemic. Today's title of our symposium will be focusing on the challenges facing air and space laws during COVID-19 pandemic. As we know, and for the past 10 months, the humanity was facing a challenge, a sanitary challenge. But this sanitary challenge didn't have just an impact on health, but it had an impact on everything, almost everything. One of the major sectors which were hit directly by this pandemic is the air industry. And we know that when states have imposed lockdowns and closed all the air borders as well as the maritime borders, there was a problem facing countries how to deal with COVID-19 and how to solve all this industry, especially the air industry. As for the space industry, it is in a way not hit directly, but still that because there is a connection and both industries are connected, the air industry as well as the space industry are both connected, there is also an impact. We are living in a different and in a very critical period which is lasting. There are impacts, there are huge impacts, economic impacts as well as other impacts. Today's subject is the impacts on the laws. Myself, I would say that it's much better to say that the impacts are on the industry than on the laws, the industries are the ones which were hit directly. But anyway, those speakers who are gonna start today and dealing with this issue will be, I have the pleasure to introduce them one by one. We have first Dr. Nabush, Assistant Professor at the College of Law, University of Sharjah, which will be dealing with the impact of COVID-19 on air cargo, the future ahead. The second speaker will be Dr. Shadi Shekat, dealing with of course, there are students who are going to present also a paper titled Legal and Practical Implications of COVID-19 on Aviation Industry. The third topic will be dealt with Dr. Shadi Shekat, Associate Professor at the College of Law, University of Sharjah. It is can pandemic mold itself to outer space? A commentary. The third one will be, the fourth will be Dr. Philip, assistant professor, and the title of his subject will be coronavirus and planetary protection time to revisit forward, backward contamination guidelines. And we'll finish with the last one, which is a subject presented by students, by a student. So I will give the Dean of the Law School, Dr. Professor Imad, I welcome him to give a short introduction to this seminar or this symposium. Welcome, Professor Imad.
شكرا جزيلا مرة ثانية. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية كل الشكر والتقدير لزميلنا وأخونا الفاضل الأستاذ الدكتور فيصل بن حليلو الذي يرأس هذه الندوة المهمة. في الحقيقة الندوة مهمة في قطاع تأثر كثيرا في جائحة كورونا. أيضا يسعدني أن أرحب بجميع الزملاء والزميلات من أعضاء الهيئة التدريسية ومن الطلبة في البرنامج ماجستير القانون الجوي والفضائي، وبالضيوف الكرام من الهيئة العامة للطيران المدني الشريك نستطيع أن نقول الاستراتيجي الذي نعتمد عليه كثيرا لتدريب الطلبة في قطاع الطيران المدني أو في القطاع النقل الجوي. كما أشكر كل من دخل وشارك في هذه الندوة. مثل ما قلت، ندوة تلقي الضوء على التحديات التي واجهها قطاع النقل الجوي والفضاء في ظل المتغيرات المحلية والدولية. هذه المتغيرات كما قلت في إحدى الندوات جعلتنا سجناء في بيتنا في البداية، وأنه جرى التهويل كثيرا في بداية هذه الأزمة لدرجة اعتقدنا أن العالم سيتوقف، ومن ثم بدأت الانفراجات قليلا وقليلا لنصل إلى مرحلة نستطيع أن نتأقلم شيئا فشيئا مع هذه المتغيرات التي فرضتها جائحة كورونا. كما تعلمون، قطاع النقل الجوي الذي نحن في كأشخاص زبائن له في التنقل تأثر كثيرا، وغالبيتنا إن لم يكن كلنا لم يستطيع السفر في أي إجازة خلال فصل الصيف وحتى في العطل الرسمية. شركات الطيران تأثرت كثيرا، وهناك الكثير من الدعاوي القانونية، وصدرت الأحكام القضائية على بعض شركات الطيران التي أحكام قضائية كيفت هذه الجائحة وأعفت من بعض الالتزامات وأعادت التوازن إلى العقد، ومن جهة أخرى كيفت الجائحة على أنها قوة قاهرة ومن ثم استحالة في التنفيذ فأدى إلى فسخ العقد. لن أطيل في هذا الأمر. في الختام لا يسعني إلا أن أشكر كل من ساهم في الإعداد والترتيب لهذه الندوة، وأخص بالشكر الزميل والأخ الفاضل الدكتور أحمد فرح نائب العميد الذي أبلى بلاء حسنا، وهذه كانت فكرته وفكرة البرنامج. الزملاء أعضاء الهيئة التدريسية في البرنامج أنفسهم، الدكتورة إيمان نبوش والدكتور فيليب والدكتور شادي وكل من تقدم في ورقة بحثية إذا غاب عني بعض الأسماء. أيضا أشكر الأستاذة نهال إمام مساعدة التدريس في الحقيقة التي تبلي، أشكرها من أعماق قلبي، التي تبلي بلاء حسنا في الكلية وفي خدمة هذه الكلية. أشكر كل أعضاء الهيئة الإدارية ومساعدي التدريس. وأشكر أخيرا أخي وصديقي الأستاذ الدكتور فيصل، الأخ العزيز الذي سوف يدير هذا الحوار. شكرا لكم جميعا، متمنيا لهذه الندوة كل آيات التوفيق وأسماء المعاني. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Thank you to Professor Imad for this short introduction to the topic. Of course, he has brought up the major points or the major critical points of the issue, which is the impact of coronavirus or the pandemic, COVID-19 on basically, especially on air industry. Without taking too much time, I would go straight forward to introduce Dr. Iman Naboush, who will be the first panelist to speak. And of course, there is no stage. Each one of us is at home. Unfortunately, we would have liked and loved to be all together and introducing them to join me on the stage. However, each one of us is at home sitting and maybe having a coffee. So I would say that we have to adapt ourselves to the new challenges, to the new circumstances. And indeed, that's how humanity or humans are trying to cope with the COVID-19. So Dr. Iman Naboush is an associate professor at the College of Law, University of Sharjah. She is teaching some courses on air laws, especially in the master's program, the aviation and the space master's program. Dr. Naboush, the word is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Faisal. Good morning, everyone, and thank you for your attendance. Just to correct, assistant professor, not associate. Today, my topic will be about the impact of COVID-19 on the air cargo, how this sector has been suffering since the beginning of this coronavirus pandemic. And we can see that in air cargo, it's a hugely important sector in aviation industry in general and in the carriage of cargo. The importance of air cargo is that the amount of cargo that is being carried every day, it's huge. As you can see on the screen, in 24 hours of air cargo, we can find that cargo carried by air are valued at 18.6 billion in cargo, which would be shipped every day. So airline industry here, they will carry approximately 52 million metric tons of goods every year, which is equal to 35% of the global trade value of the cargo carried by, in general, whether by air, by road, or by sea. That will be equal to 6.8 trillion worth of goods every year will be carried by cargo. So the pandemic has a great effect on the air cargo in particular, because many restrictions were issued in several countries. Before that, it's important to know how efficient is, or was at least before the pandemic, the air cargo and carrying cargo and crossing the borders, where we can find that the average days for clearance of air cargo in international borders, it will be about roughly 2.1 days, which where the cargo will be, during this period of time, will have arrived to their final destination, to the consignee. Therefore, in order to minimize the impact of the COVID-19 restrictions, which have been in place since the start of this pandemic, it's important to have a cooperation between the international organizations, all international organizations here, starting by the UN, the ICAO, the WTO, WCO, and the governments, the national regulators in every country, in addition to the industry stakeholders, in order to at least to define the global procedures that will be followed globally on a global standard. And this is very important, to have something that is globally adopted by all countries, and at least to have standards to safeguard the cargo in such period of time. As you can see on the map here, the impact of COVID-19, it covered almost all the world, and the orange and yellow ones, those are affected where the moderate constraints were issued here, including, of course, the UAE. If you here in the UAE, as we can see, it is classified in orange and sometimes in yellow, and in red in some cases. It depends on the destination of the cargo. So here the air freight capacity, which are originated in the UAE and are supposed to be destined to Africa, China, Europe, etc., we find that the cargo capacity was reduced between 50 to 60%. And even the reduction will get to between 80 to 90% when the destination will be the United States of America. So we can see the huge impact of cargo and the reduction, the high percentage of reduction in cargo capacity in the countries. So therefore, we find some examples of cargo flights where it was very important for them, in particular in life-saving medical supplies, where they will be carrying such supplies, taking them to other destinations. We find that those flights were affected mostly, of course, due to the cumbersome and the bureaucratic process. And here, sorry, I cannot, okay. Here it seems that we can say that we are in a fight against the COVID-19 pandemic in order to keep moving, at least to keep the most essential cargo moving. I don't know what happened here, but the screen is not reacting to my, okay, who is controlling the screen now? Nihal? Nihal, can you hear me?
Go ahead, go ahead.
Yeah, what happened? I don't know what happened. It's just the screen froze first, then I couldn't control it. Then someone was controlling it, so I don't know what happened. I'm sorry for this, but it seems a technical issue. Sorry?
You can continue, you can continue. Go ahead.
Yeah, I will. I'm trying just to get to the slide that I finished. Still, another user control, take back, okay. So here, as we are saying, the COVID-19 has affected countries, but in a different way. So we find some countries where they recognize the need for the moving of cargo and the constant assistance in this way. So therefore, they exempted air cargo. Excuse me, what's going on? Sorry, Dr. Philip, I'm just I'm still presenting. So as we are saying that the some countries, they kept the air cargo moving. Other countries, they issued a full closure, such as Somalia. They didn't allow any flight in or out, including the air cargo flights. Therefore, the IATA, which is the most effective agency in this area, they try to minimize and to issue some instructions in order to keep the safe movement of cargo by air. So we find why it is important. It's highly important, especially in relation to carrying the medical equipment, or even to keep the global supply chain moving, in particular the cargo and other essential products which are needed in all over the world. And at the same time, keeping the cargo moving will save and support jobs in the local communities. For example, in this for this area, the Croatian Airlines, they operated during the pandemic, during the curfew, a charter flight from Abu Dhabi to Zagreb in order to carry the critical medical equipment, and several flights were originated in the UAE, going to other countries in order to carry the most important medical supplies. And stressing on this issue, the IATA Director General and CEO, he encouraged governments not to imply the full closure, in particular in relation to air cargo. And in particular, the delays are endangering lives. So therefore, all governments are needed to step up and to keep the global supply of chains open. So here are some of the efforts which have been initiated by the IATA in order to keep the efficient movement of air cargo, where they urged countries to allow temporary traffic rights for cargo operations, in particular to remove some charges and fees that can be imposed on airlines, and the suspension of operational curfew to enable the flexible network at this critical time. In addition to fast-track procedure for overflight and landing permits, these are essential. These must be provided. Regarding the cargo crew, if we keep the same restrictions on the cargo crew, the air cargo will not be effective. So therefore, there is a need to allow cargo crew to get home safely and to be exempted from the quarantine restrictions, of course, provided that they will follow the social distancing guidelines as implemented in each country. On the other hand, the ICAO, they created the Council Aviation Recovery Task Force in order to provide practical and guidance to governments in this industry. Of course, to restart the international air transport sector and to recover from the impacts of the pandemic globally. So they issued several guidelines in several sectors related to the carriage of cargo, which will help the effective movements of cargo. For example, they provided that the cargo flight crew, they should apply the same health and safety considerations, even though some cargo crew, they might not always be in contact with other persons, but still they need to apply those health and safety considerations, such as physical distancing, personal sanitations, protective barriers, etc. They draw a road feeder to freight in order to reduce the bad effects of the pandemic, and to have the reception of and freight pickup. So they encouraged the reduction of physical touch points between staff, to apply the physical distancing and all the time to keep the material handling equipments cleaned and sanitized. In this area, digitizing is hugely important. It was implemented before, but now it is more important than before. And applying the digitization will feed two birds in one stone. For example, it will improve the safety and in the same time the efficiency and transparency in this area. Also, they provided guidelines for the cargo facility origin and destination, where they, the ICAO, they provided that a crew must maintain rotations for 14 days period, of course, in order to make sure that this virus will not be transmitted, and to sanitize by alcohol-based sanitizer all services, clean and disinfect those services. And sometimes keeping physical distancing is not possible. For example, when more than 2 persons will lift required heavy cargo. So in this case, they were advised to that appropriate personal protective equipment must be worn. And in relation to the loading and unloading air cargo, they stressed that close contact between personnel must be limited to the minimum possible at the time. And human chain loading also, in case they apply it, they must be wearing the personal protective equipments. They should be wearing masks, gloves, etc. And close proximity of staff for loading must be minimized in all times. Whenever there is no possibility for physical distancing, the personal protective equipments, it will be an option for them. And regarding the COVID-19 response and recovery implementation center, which have been created by the ICAO, they created a website in order to assist governments and airlines in implementing support, coordination, monitoring, and reporting activities. And finally, in the UAE was one of the countries which initiated decisions here in this case in order to minimize the bad applications of the COVID-19, where they followed first the guidance of ICAO, which have been already explained earlier, to enable, of course, extraordinary exemptions from the existing regulations. We need now, at this stage, we need to apply extraordinary exemptions. If we keep following the same regulations as before, it will be a struggle for the air cargo. At the same time, they issued a safety decision for 2020 under number 12. In this decision, they allowed flights which are supposed to carry passengers. They allow them to be amended in order to carry cargo instead of passengers, of course, under some restrictions, most importantly to keep the airworthiness of the aircraft in place and to get approval about this airworthiness from the GCAA. Also, they issued a decision in which restricted the goods needed to support the fight against the COVID-19. And by this, I'll finish my presentation. Thank you all for your listening. And if you have any question, feel free to ask me. Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. Iman Naboush. And as I have said previously, maybe it was a mistake, assistant professor at the College of Law, University of Sharjah. Dr. Naboush has given us an overview on the challenges of COVID-19 to the air cargo industry. Basically, as we know, the air traffic, or in general, has been hit drastically, and the losses are colossal, and that's how this industry is now in a way, in a very I would say in a situation which is not which doesn't give great hope if COVID-19 continues, and that's the reason why companies are trying to survive by all means. Most of them have got into what is called the air cargo traffic, or the air cargo traffic, and as it was mentioned by Dr. Iman, even the air cargo traffic was reduced for between 40 to 60%, as well as it is for, and which had more impact, which is the passengers traffic. She has given some solutions that are brought up. Decisions they were taken by competent organizations to take a burden and to make this industry survive for a while. States, of course, are taking also some measures to protect their companies, and these are one of the decisions. But all this, it's not clear yet. We will know in the future how big is the impact, how drastic is the impact, and how harmful is the impact on air traffic in general. And of course, states have taken advantage of the pandemic. The companies that they have turned their airplanes from passengers to air cargo, and especially for bringing or transporting medical goods, especially, and that was in the beginning from China and